what the thing that convinced me was like, you want to be a leader? You want to stand at the front of the room? You better lead by example. So that's how I started to convince myself. And it was like, I loved leading the classes. I loved teaching. I love being at the front of the room. So I had to figure it out. And it was 1% better every day.
Hello, hola, ni hao, salut, namaste everyone, wherever in the world you're listening to this, and welcome to 100 Sum Game, a podcast where we discuss negotiation, persuasion, and influence. Join me as I interview master negotiators from a new industry each episode and get inspired to get the best outcome for yourself while creating value for your counterpart. My name is Adele. I'm a recent economics and psychology grad with experience in finance and marketing, and I'm fascinated by the power of negotiation to change your life and career. Whether you're an early or seasoned professional looking to accelerate your career, negotiate your value, and tactfully handle conflicts, or simply a curious individual aiming to level up your soft skills, leave your shoes and missed opportunities at the door, and let's get started. You liked the entrepreneurship game. It's by far the episode that got the most downloads. So now I'm giving you the fitness entrepreneurship game with the Jessica Takimoto. She is the owner and founder of Shine Fit. She founded her own fitness studio. And Jess, how was it? I think you changed like over 1,000 lives since you launched. So welcome, Jess. I'm so excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I am super excited to dive into it. And thank you for tuning in, listening today. My goal anytime I am on a podcast is to just be 110% present, to be as vulnerable and authentic as I can so that you can learn not just from my wins and the highs, but also the lows and the challenges, and walk away feeling inspired and motivated and hopefully have learned something new. So thanks for being here today. And I'm so excited to get into it.
Yeah, lovely. Okay, first thing we want to know is you have like an interesting background, not a very traditional one. So why don't you tell us about your journey, like how you found Shine and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start from the beginning. So if you have never heard my voice or seen my face before, again, my name is Jess Takimoto. I'm the owner and founder of Shine Fit, which is a women's fitness studio. Our physical studio is located downtown Toronto, right by Yonge and Bloor, and we offer dance-based classes, small group training, transformation programs, one-on-one coaching. Essentially is a hub for women's health and wellness, right? And the thing that makes Shine different or special is that it is a body positive fitness company, anti-diet, which means we don't do traditional weight loss, traditional like fitness type goals where you're measuring, tracking, taking transformation photos. I don't believe in that. And that's from my own journey with fitness and with body image. And I struggled with that for a really, really long time. And I, really needed and wanted a fitness company where I could go and get stronger and have really, functional, great athletic training, but also in a way that was fun and inclusive and welcoming. And this is coming from someone who's been athletic their whole life. And now I have so many members who have been not athletic their whole life, and they've been excluded from mainstream fitness spaces, people of larger bodies at different, marginalized or lower socioeconomic, all sorts of different ways in which you have been excluded from the fitness industry. And that was really important to me, to create a space where no matter what background you have, where you come from, that you can come in and feel welcome and feel included and feel like fitness can be for you. So that's a little bit about what I do now and how I got here, the backstory of it. I would say I was a pretty traditional up until I started my company. So I was a competitive dancer my whole life. I was always very like high achieving and goal oriented, very ambitious, like type A, go-getter, and went to university for, I did the commerce program at Queen's University. And then during that, I was thinking about, okay, I didn't know that there was careers outside of corporate career. And as I was going, I started to learn about business and understand how business worked, or how, a capitalistic society works, how taxes work, these sorts of things. And at the same time, I was really seeing a lot of graduates who went and got a corporate job, and then 2-3 years in, they're coming back and, they were sold because of a certain salary or because of the prestige or something like that. And then 2-3 years in, they're like, I hate this, I'm miserable. And they're all changing jobs. I was super passionate about fitness around the same time. Like I mentioned, I have a dance background, got into the gym in high school, into group fitness. And when the instructor is like, you should become an instructor, looked into it, and I wasn't old enough, but I, could when I was an undergrad. So I went, got my certification, started teaching for the school gym, and, still kind of doing the recruiting, going to the events, like on this kind of corporate path to go corporate. And I knew, I'm looking at the jobs and I'm like, I'm not going to like this. I can barely sit still for a lecture. How am I going to sit at a desk for 8 hours a day? And then the pandemic hit and I was studying abroad. I came home and I'm in quarantine. I started live streaming fitness classes on Instagram because I was in quarantine. I had no work, no school. I had nothing to do. And I just knew like, I need to work out for me. And maybe if I just pretend to teach a class, like how I would teach in person, that some other people can join in too. And I know as a female entrepreneur, you should never say my business started as an accident because it just completely discredits, the work. It's like, how many female entrepreneurs like, oh, it was an accident. Like, no, but it was, I will say, not intentional. I did not go in with the intention of starting a business. I just started live streaming these classes and I had 20 people there, 30 people there, 40 people there, 50 people there. And at this point, I'm not even thinking, okay, this could be a business. I'm thinking, okay, this is really fun. Maybe this can be like a better version of the side hustle I had before. So I eventually, after a month and a half of just doing it for free, 5 days a week, people are like, can we pay you? And I'm like, no, what? And they're like, please, like, let us pay you because we're coming to these classes 5 days a week. And I'm getting all these messages like, this is changing my life. I have never felt so good. You're like, this is amazing. I've never been so consistent. Like, I feel so much more confident, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I was like, okay, I guess fine. And I was like, you can pay $5 a week for unlimited access. I'm treating them like personal trainer. Okay. Unlimited access to everything, $5 a week, sending personal check-in messages, et cetera. And I felt so guilty charging people money. I had a lot of issues with money mindset that I said, I'm just going to keep 1 day a week entirely for free because it's COVID. It's a lockdown. No one knows what's happening with anything. And a lot of people are, not working. So I just like want to be able to give at least 1 day for free. And this, again, accidentally created a lead generation pipeline where everyone started sharing about, oh, it's free class Wednesday. Invite your friends. It's a free class every single Wednesday. Wow. And then that led into like a 2-week trial. And then before, like, a month later, I'm like, I'm spending more time on this than my full-time internship. I'm like, I'm getting up, going on Zoom from 9 till 5. And then I was working on Shine. Like I was just teaching my class, editing the website, sending messages, having so much fun and getting these messages about like people saying, this is amazing. This is changing my life. Like that kind of praise, that kind of, those kind of messages, it is addicting. It was like, so rewarding and fueling me to just try to make it a little bit better every single day. And then I realized halfway through the summer, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a business. I have like clients who pay me money. Like what?
Wow.
And so that's kind of how Shine started. It was not intended to be a full-time business. And then, flash forward, I'm going into my 4th year and I was talking to some alumni, like, I'm like, have this thing. I'm like, making money and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, do it. Try this for 2 years. Go all in because you have nothing to lose. Like, what's the worst case scenario? You have to quote unquote start over at 24. Whether
if
that's
not
like
now, then when?
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I went for it. And then that next year and a half that was the pandemic was kind of ending. People are coming in person. I lost like 80% of my clients in 6 months because nobody wanted online anymore and had to figure out, I'm like, okay, well, I'm all in. I'm committed. Like, what am I going to do? Do I want to go and recruit for a job? No, I want to figure this out. So I had to figure it out. And then I had my studio space that I was using for filming, transitioned to that in person. So now it's been about 1.25 years of having an in-person studio and transitioning from online business to bricks and mortar. It's like a whole new business. Like it's basically like I'm almost 4 years in, but I'm also just over 1 year in, depending on the way you look at it.
First of all, like the journey is, I think, very inspiring. Believing in yourself, in the business and consistency. First of all, as you said, you struggled with body image, confidence, toxic fitness culture, etc. earlier before starting Shine. So curious, how did you negotiate with yourself? How did you convince yourself to love your body and that you were enough? Because I think that's really hard. Probably like something that could not be taught. You can't really watch that anywhere. You can't really learn that anywhere. And a lot of people still struggle with it, even though they try different methods. How did that influence your decision to launch your business?
Yeah. And honestly, like I'm so excited. I was reading through all these questions and this is going to be the most fascinating conversation. So I hope you're listening and I hope you're paying attention because it is true when it comes to negotiations, often, or especially sales, any kind of transaction, the most important the most important person to convince of anything is yourself. If you can convince yourself first of something, then you can convince another person. But if you can't even convince yourself, you have no way of negotiating or selling another person. So I was a dancer growing up, which is a very aesthetic sport. You are judged based on the way you look. That is unfortunately the reality. And so many young women, especially girls that do aesthetic sports, dance, gymnastics, cheer, musical theater, end up, constantly looking at their body, thinking about their body, comparing their body, picking themselves apart, trying to make themselves smaller or more toned or to fit this specific beauty or fitness ideal. And I fell into that, right? In high school, when I stopped dancing and I got into fitness, that's really where it started. And I didn't realize at the time, like I got into a big hole of diet culture. I was exercising obsessively, doing like really intense HIIT and cardio 4 or 5, 6 days a week. Definitely under eating, like on the MyFitnessPal diets, on the like Kayla Tsina's bikini body challenge. If you're listening and you know any of this is ringing a bell, then you can definitely relate to this conversation of just constantly, no matter how much I was exercising, it wasn't enough, and no matter how much I was eating, it was too much or the wrong or too bad. And when we talk about negotiation or convincing someone of something, the same thing comes down to your own. If you think of your relationship with fitness like a relationship with another person, so if that means you are guilt tripping, if you are manipulating, if you are bribing yourself to go work out, if you are shaming yourself, judging yourself, making critical comments, right? If you would not accept that from another person in a friendship or a romantic relationship, why would you accept that from yourself when it comes to fitness, when it comes to your body, when it comes to your relationship with yourself? That's how that's a toxic relationship. So what really made that flip for me to be like, okay, I need to convince myself. Like I realized A, that there's a problem, and B, I want to change, was when I became a group fitness instructor and I started teaching these classes and seeing how people were, so happy and having such a good time. And then kind of after we're like, oh, but like I didn't do the jumping jacks. I had to do the burpees. Or like I kept messing up. And I'm like, how can you not see it? The fact that you showed up and made time for exercise, especially as a university student, that's amazing. That's something to be proud of. Like you should be so proud of yourself. And I'm trying to, encourage people. And then I'm like, how can I stand at the front of the room and be a leader, an instructor, and tell you that you're doing something so amazing if immediately before class and immediately after I'm going and looking in the mirror and picking apart my body or picking apart my own workout? And so that was like, okay, if I want to be a leader, if I want to stand at the front of the room, I can't then go look in the mirror and start picking myself apart. Like, and that's where I started to try to build a healthier relationship with my body and not picking myself apart so much, and with food and not having these kind of like guilt tripping or restriction or crazy diets. And, no matter if I didn't exercise, quote unquote, perfectly according to plan throughout the week, being that's okay. It's life. It happens. What the thing that convinced me was like, you want to be a leader? You want to stand at the front of the room? You better lead by example. So that's how I started to convince myself. And it was like, I loved leading the classes. I loved teaching. I love being at the front of the room. So I had to figure it out. And it was 1% better every day.
That's really cool. So it was like, how people say, like, you learn on the job type of thing. So you did all the back end heavy lifting of negotiating yourself, that you're ready for this, convincing yourself that you love your body and that you were enough, etc. So this time, how did you convince, for example, your clients to choose you and your services instead of other fitness businesses?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I was not focused on market share, on sales, on competitors, nothing. I was just focused on people. Yeah. I didn't do any traditional sales or marketing for the first 2 years. I grew entirely on word of mouth, referrals, and organic social media reach, because I just showed up and I was being myself. And that brought in, and this is again, a very untraditional answer, I'm just showing up and sharing like my thoughts, my opinions, and that authenticity. And I think that energy and just being so sure, I had convinced myself so much of what I believed. I had, convinced myself that exercise is fun. I had convinced myself that my body's great no matter what size or shape it is. I had convinced myself, and I believe this so deeply. And other people are seeing this and hearing me talk about it and seeing the energy and that conviction. And they're like, I want to believe that exercise is fun the way that she does, right? So it wasn't about comparing to other people, because I said from the beginning, like, I'm not for everybody. I don't need to convince you to come try Shine, because if you look at this and you're like, this is too dancey, or this is too high energy, or this is too girly, or this is too, not for me, then I'm like, awesome, go find someone that is for you, right? Like I would say this to people all the time, like, it's not for everyone. If it's not your thing, you're just one step closer to figuring out what is. I want you to find a trainer. I want you to find a coach. I want you to find a community. I want you to find an outlet. I want you to find an activity that lights you up. And this is what lights me up. And so that, I think, message of almost anti-sales, anti-convincing, anti-hustle of people would come in, and I was focused on people. And I'm like, if this is not a good fit for you, I will refer you to somebody who is going to be a good fit, because and this is honestly what enabled that initial success and that initial word of mouth. Somebody comes and tries a class and they're like, this is not for me. And you treat them just so well from the outset. There's no judgment there. And you say, you know what? Amazing. Thanks for trying. Like, let me suggest, actually, you know what? I think running might be for you. Like, let me tell you about a really cool running program, because based on what you're telling me, this is going to be a better fit. If you don't like group workouts, you like to do your own thing, then like try this, right? Someone comes and, the next time they're talking to a friend or family member about, someone's like, oh yeah, I really want to start getting active. Like, I'd love to do something fun and dancing. They're like, let me tell you about this girl, Jess. Let me tell you about this company, because they treated me so right and so well. They had my best interests at heart, not theirs, not selling, not convincing. They wanted what was best for me. You need to go check them out. And that's how you build a reputation. That's how you build word of mouth. And it is very much this kind of long-term strategy. That's what enabled these things. And now looking back, I'm like, oh crap, like that really worked.
Being true to your brand and audience focused, I think really unlocked a lot of value for yourself. Yeah.
Which ultimately just comes back to, you have to convince yourself first, because if you can't convince yourself, you can't convince other people. Yeah. So if I don't feel, if I feel icky about doing referral codes, and what for some other people might be like, this is the best marketing strategy, this is the best way to get people in. If you believe that, if you've convinced yourself of that, you can convince other people of that. Yeah. Right?
100%. All right. One final question I have for you is, I know you were a part of, I think, LOI Accelerator Hub.
Yeah.
So how did you convince those folks or any other external stakeholders to believe in your business? Curious how you've done that.
Yeah, really good question. It comes down to ultimately your belief in yourself and your business and where it's going. So I've applied for what I was going to say, a number of grants. Whether that was at Queen's, like kind of startup pitch your business type grants. Last year, I won a grant from Desjardins, which is about small businesses that are making a community impact. Oh, cool. Currently in the Toronto female founders startup. Crap, I should know this.
Something, yeah.
A grant for female founders in Toronto, right? And as I'm writing these applications, it's funny. I'm going to give a specific example of this Toronto grant. And I applied for this grant 2 Novembers ago. And I wrote the application and I didn't get it. And then they opened up an application pool a year later. So this was right around the time when I was starting that in-person studio. They opened up grant applications. Again, they do it every year. So this November I went and I was like, okay, you know what? I really think this would be a good fit. My business would be great for this, would flourish in this program, deserves this, etc. I wrote it again. And I went back and I looked at what I wrote in the grant application from a year ago until this year. And I compared those two side by side. And part of it was, I had more experience. So I had more confidence. So I was more convincing. But if I read one compared to the other, one of them was like not nearly as convincing that like I knew what I was doing, that this grant was a good fit for me, etc. And you look at the clarity and the conviction in how much I believed in myself about what I was offering, the pricing, the services, the brand, the community, etc. It was because I believed in myself more. And part of building that belief was having the experience to back it up, right? Like confidence, you build confidence through action. So every time I had somebody sign up, every time I, grew the studio or I hired another instructor, et cetera, like I had proof that, this is working. And then I could build a better vision and build a better business plan.
Yeah. So building that confidence as the person on the other side of the table. Again, as you said, believe in yourself. If you don't like come across as confident, no one wants to do a deal with you. No one wants to like give you a grant. No one wants to like sign up, right? Like, because people are really looking up to you for like something. So you have to really exude that. All right. As we're closing this episode, this was a really great conversation. What is like one advice you have to aspiring or early self-care as entrepreneurs?
I have said this on so many podcasts before. So if you've listened to any of my other podcasts, you probably can guess what I'm about to say. Don't focus on the money. Focus on being the best in the world at something, and the money will follow naturally. And so how I would extend that to you in a piece of advice is, maybe it's not about being the best in the world, right? In a competitive sense, but like, what can you do that you will be the best at, that you will love so much, especially if you want to build your own thing as an entrepreneur? Like, the money can never be the main goal, because the money's not there for a long time. Like, the money's the last place it shows up. And so when you focus on the thing that you are the most passionate about, that you can be amazing at, that is going to allow you to be the best version of yourself, right? You focus on following that, especially in today's digital age. Like, there's so many different ways to have an amazing career, or to make money, or to have flexibility, etc. You focus on, what do you want? Not what you think is realistic, what you think is possible. Focus on, what do you want? What are you going to be amazing at? What's going to make you the best version of yourself? And then trust that the other pieces, the how, or the money, or the structure, are going to fall into place naturally.
Yeah. Love it. All right. We spoke about passion. We spoke about confidence. We spoke about getting in the field and doing it. In negotiations, I think we haven't spoken about that aspect of negotiation in any other episodes. So really happy that we touched on it. And thank you, Jessica, for coming on my podcast. This was so fun. Thank you for sharing all those insights. You're really, I think, changing the space one day at a time. I'm so happy that we're friends.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for listening, for giving us your time, your attention, your energy today. I'm so grateful. I hope you learned something. I hope you took something away. And please, if you listen to this, send me a message on Instagram. I answer all my messages personally. I'd love to know that my podcasts that I'm going on are actually reaching new people. And if you happen to know another podcast that you think I'd be a good guest on, reach out, because I'm looking to do more podcasts this year. But yeah, please send me a message on Instagram. I'd love to know that you listened to this episode.
Yes, please let us know your feedback, and talk to you soon. All right. I hope you took as much valuable information as I did, and more. My name is Adele, and you have listened to an episode from 100 Some Game. You like it here? Go ahead and subscribe to 100 Some Game on your preferred platform. While you're at it, I'd love to hear about what you're thinking of this podcast, any episode requests, or further feedback. It'll help me make this podcast better for you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Peace.